Now, good morning, everyone. Let's start with the second lecture. The title of the lecture is the faults and abnormal operating conditions. So, faults and the abnormal operating conditions. So, under the faults, first we will discuss the shunt faults. We will discuss the shunt faults or the short circuits. That is, the shunt faults are also called the short circuits. Now, let us suppose a system in which we have a generator, then we have a step-up transformer, bus bar, and transmission line. And short circuit, it is when the path of the load current is cut short because of the breakdown of the insulation. We can say that short circuit has occurred. So how we can define it? When the path of the load current is cut short due to the breakdown of insulation. So, when the path of the load current is cut short due to the breakdown of the insulation, we can say that short circuit has occurred. Now, what's the reason for the breakdown of the insulations? There are a variety of reasons for the breakdown of the insulation. So, breakdown of insulation due to its own weakening with time, or it may be due to the overvoltage. It may be due to the over voltage. Also, some of the reasons for the breakdown of the insulation are aging. First one is aging of insulation. Second one is temperature. Third one is rain, hail, or snow. Fourth one is the chemical pollution. Then we have some foreign objects. Then there may be any other cause for that. This overvoltage may be either internal or external. That is, the overvoltage it may be internal, which can be due to the switching or external. So the external voltage, it can be due to the lightning. So these are the causes of the breakdown of insulation or faults. Now the figure here shows the single line to ground fault on a transmission line due to flashover or spark gap across the string insulator. So here we will have the string insulator, and this is the arc across that string insulator due to the fault. It may be due to some material which is conducting. So this is flashover or spark gap across the spring insulator. So in this case, this is the conductor, line conductor. This is the insulator which is connected to the pole. However, the current is flowing through this insulator due to the failure of this insulation. It may be temporary. And here in this case, you will see the current is flowing like that, and it is flowing through the ground wire. So it is actually a single line to ground fault, which is explained here. In this, we have the generator, transformer and bus bar and then line. So here it is the single line to ground fault. These faults, these type of faults are actually temporary faults. These faults are the temporary faults, and these are actually due to the insulation flashover. And if the path of the arc in this case is a load to deionize, then by interrupting the electrical supply for a sufficient period, then the arc does not restrike after the supply is restored. So this is known as the recloser. This type of thing is known as recloser. So what we are doing, we are interrupting the electrical supply for a sufficient period, and the arc does not restrike after the supply is restored. This process is known as recloser. That is the process of interruption followed by the intentional re-energization. So this type of process is known as the recloser. So what the recloser is doing, it will deionize the path. It will deionize this path, and as a result, when again we energize the supply, we will have no material left here so that the current can flow through it. That is, no conducting path would be there. So this type of thing is known as a recloser. You have observed in your sometimes at your homes also, 2 or 3, whenever the fault is there, 2 or 3 times the supply is there, it go on, it is off. So this type of process is known as a recloser. So what the recloser is doing? So what is the function of the recloser? The recloser what the recloser will do, it will help burning out the object. It will help burning out the object which is causing the breakdown of the insulation. Which is causing the breakdown of insulation. So generally 3 reclosers are attempted in a low voltage system. 3 reclosures are attempted. After which the breaker is logged. However, in a extra high voltage system, where the damage due to the this recloser, where the damage due to this short circuit is very high, then in that very case, and also system stability is at stake, in that very case only one recloser is allowed. So in low voltage system, 3 reclosers are there, and in a high voltage system, extra high voltage system, where system stability is at stake and also the equipment is very costly, in that very case only one recloser is allowed, and this recloser actually it is done automatically. So this process is done automatically. Now the short circuit sometimes can be total, which is also known as the dead short circuit, and sometimes it is partial. So short circuit can be the total short circuit and it can be the partial short circuit. And one more term is there, that is the metallic fault. A fault which bypasses the entire load current through itself is known as the metallic fault. That is, the whole of the, let us suppose that here the fault, the whole of the load current passes through that particular fault, then in that very case it is known as the metallic fault. And metallic fault presents a very low, or you can say practically zero resistance or impedance, zero resistance impedance are the which is known as the fault resistance. Now come to the partial short circuit. The partial short circuit, it can be modeled by a non-zero resistance. It can be modeled by the non-zero resistance. Non-zero resistance or impedance in parallel with the intended path of the current. And most of the times the fault resistance is nothing but the resistance of the arc. It is nothing but the resistance of the arc that is formed as a result of the flashover. So fault resistance is actually this resistance of the arc. What is the resistance here? Sometimes it is the resistance of arc. Now this arc resistance, it is highly non-linear in nature. This arc resistance is highly non-linear in nature, and due to this fault, this is highly non-linear in nature. And some of the early researchers, they have actually developed the value of this arc resistance. That is, they have developed the given the empirical formula for that. That is, arc resistance is given by 8750 S plus 3 UT divided by I into 1.4. Now in this case the different terms are there. The first one is the this S. So what is S? S is the spacing in feet. S is spacing in feet. Then we have U, velocity of air. That is U, velocity of air. U is the velocity of air. Then we have T. So T in this case is the time in seconds. And finally, we have the current. It is the fault current in amperes. Fault current in amperes. So early researchers have developed the model for this arc resistance. So this model is widely used, and the name of this model is Warrington model. So this model is known as Warrington model of arc resistance. Now let us discuss the effect of shunt faults. Effect of shunt faults. Now, actually, if the power system consists of an isolated alternator which is feeding its own load like this one, then in that very case, the steady state fault current would not be of a very high value, and it would not be of much concern if it is not interconnected. Now, let us consider this turbo alternator where the three-phase short circuit occurs at the terminals, and let us assume in this case that internal voltage will be 1 per unit. Internal voltage will be 1 per unit, and the synchronous impedance in this case, XD is 2 per unit. Then in that very case, the steady state short circuit current in that very case would be 1 divided by 2, which is equals to 0.5 per unit, which is of a very small value, and as a result there is no worry because of that. Now consider the subtransient impedance of this turbo alternator. Let us suppose that subtransient impedance of the turbo alternator would be XT double dash. It is represented by XT double dash. Its value is 0.1, and then in that very case the current would be, the subtransient current would be 10 per unit. Okay, so if the subtransient impedance is 0.1, then the subtransient current will be 10 per unit. As you already know that whenever the fault occurs, so we have the subtransient period for a few cycles, then transient period, and then the steady state period. For a typical turbo alternator, the values of this subtransient, the value of this XT, the steady state value of this impedance, is from 1 to 2, and for transient the value is 0.12 to 0.35, and for the subtransient the direct axis reactance value is equals to 0.1 to 0.25. So this is the subtransient period in which you will see the value of the current is very high. That is, it is 10 times the normal current. However, since our system is interconnected, we have the interconnection in the system, so all the generators and even motors will contribute towards the fault current. That is, all the generators and all the motors, it will contribute to the fault current, and as a result the value of this fault current is very much high. So it will contribute to the fault current, and the value of this fault current is very high. So it has a very high value because all the generators and motors will contribute that. And as a result, you can say that the value of the fault current is tens of times the normal full load current. So the fault causes very high value of the current to flow. And if the fault current persists even for a short time, it will cause the excessive damage to the equipment that carry these currents. It can cause that, let us suppose the current increases, it will cause the overheating and attendant danger of fire. There is danger of fire to the attendant. Then overheating also causes the deterioration of insulation and weakening it further. Also, the transformers are known to have suffered the mechanical damage to their windings due to the faults. So this is due to the fact that any two current carrying conductors experiences a force. So this force go out of bonds during this fault and cause the mechanical distortion damage. We can discuss this part in the transformer. So there is another dimension to the interconnected system. Let us suppose that all the generators, as you already know, that all the generators in an interconnected system, these are connected together. All the generators in the interconnected system, these are actually connected together. Now, let us suppose these are connected together, and these are actually in synchronism with each other, and the electrical output from an alternator near the fault, let us suppose that fault occurs here at that particular point. So the output in this case would be reduced. So the electrical output will drop. However, the mechanical input here is intact. Electrical output is dropped. However, this is moving and we have the mechanical input, that is power. Mechanical is intact in this case, and it remains substantially constant at the pre-fault values. So as a result, this causes the alternator to accelerate, because otherwise the balance between the mechanical and the electrical has been maintained. Now in this case you will see that it drops, so this will accelerate, this mechanical power will accelerate, so rotor angle in that very case will increase, and as a result you will see the alternators start swinging with respect to each other, because rotor angle of this one alternator, the rotor angle of one alternator, it will increase. However, it remains constant because there is no fault in this. So as a result, the alternators start swinging with respect to each other, and if this swinging is out of control, so we have no other option than to trip the alternators. So we can say that in an interconnected power system, the stability of the system will be at stake. So stability of the system will be at stake. So faults need to be isolated as selectively as possible. So whenever the fault occurs, we should isolate it as selectively as possible. Now come to the classification of the shunt faults. The shunt faults can be phase faults and the ground faults. The faults which involve only one phase and the ground, fault which involves only one phase and the ground, then these are called the ground faults. And faults which involves two or more phase conductors, which involves two or more phase conductors with or without ground, two or more phase conductors with or without ground. So these are known as the phase faults. So the faults which involve one of the phase conductors and the ground, these are actually known as the ground faults, which involves the one of the phase conductors at the ground, and faults which involve two or more phase conductors and with or without ground, these are actually known as the phase faults. So power system has been in operation for over 100 years now, and accumulated experience shows that these faults are not equally likely. So you can say that a single line to ground fault is most likely, whereas the fault due to the simultaneous short circuit between all the three lines which is known as three phase fault, is least likely. You will see that the 85% of the faults are the line to ground fault, and this 2% is triple line fault. However, from this you will see that triple line fault is the most severe and line to ground fault is the least severe fault. Now also, the probability of the fault on different elements is actually different. You will see in this that the overhead lines, these are exposed to the atmosphere, so these are most likely to be subjected to the faults, and this switch gear and these control equipment, these are actually indoor, so these are least likely to be subjected to the fault. So it shows the probability of the fault. In this case, you will see that overhead lines it is most exposed to the fault, that is 50%, then underground cables 9%, transformers 10%, generators 7%, switchgears 12%, and CTPT relays and control equipment 12%. And the severity of the fault can be expressed in terms of the magnitude of the fault. That is, severity of the fault can be expressed in terms of the severity in terms of the magnitude of the fault current and potential for causing the damage. So from this first table, we can see that three-phase fault is the most severe and single line to ground fault is least severe. So this is all about the classification of the faults, that is phase faults and the ground faults. So in today's lecture, we discussed about the what are the shunt faults. Then we have discussed about the different type of faults, like we have discussed about the dead short circuit, partial short circuit, metallic fault, then arc resistance, which is non-linear in nature, then the causes of the fault, and effect of the shunt fault. What's the effect of the shunt fault? How the interconnection make the system more complex, and as a result, we have to take it very seriously. And then we have read about this classification of the shunt faults, that is phase fault and the ground fault, and which is more severe. Like we have line to ground fault is the least severe, and triple line fault is the most severe. And what are the probability of the fault, that is overhead line, we have the highest probability. So thank you very much.